That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit? Yes. Settle? Not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known.
अरे इसीलिए तो मैं कहता हूं कि अक्सर जो होता है वो दिखता नहीं, जो दिखता है वो होता नहीं। तो हो सकता है जो आप लोग देख रहे हैं ऐसा ना हो, और जो नहीं दिख रहा वही हो। Am I right? Or am I right?
The double slit experiment defies our understanding. It involves a laser shooting beams of light particles called photons at a screen with two parallel slits. If we mark all the spots where the photons hit the second wall, we should expect to see two strips to correspond with the two slits. But that's not what we see. Instead, we see an alternating pattern of light and dark bands. This is characteristic of the behavior of waves that pass through both slits simultaneously, interfering with each other to create the pattern on the second screen. The bright lines are where the top of waves meet, resulting in a more intense or brighter area on the screen. The darker bands are where the top of one wave meets the bottom of another, so they cancel each other out, resulting in a less intense or darker area on the screen. Here is a photo of a real interference pattern. The original double slit experiment was conducted in 1801 by British polymath Thomas Young. Since then, it's been performed with various types of particles, including electrons, and they were found to behave in the same way. This phenomenon occurs even if the photons are fired one at a time, which suggests that the photon is interfering with itself as it passes through both slits at once. Physicists were so stumped that they decided to observe which slit the particle went through. And that's when things get really weird. When scientists used a measuring device to observe the slit that each photon passed through, the interference pattern disappeared, and the photons started behaving like particles. Instead of the spectrum of light and dark bands, we see two bright bands, indicating that the photons chose one slit or the other. So light can display characteristics of both particles and waves, known as wave-particle duality. It appears that light decides to behave as a wave when it's not being watched, and acts like a particle when it is being measured. The mere act of observing which slit it went through changed the behavior of the photons, almost as if they were aware they were being watched. It's kind of like how in a video game, the environment and objects only load when the player focuses on or interacts with them. The entire world isn't rendered all at once, allowing the game to save processing power and optimize resources. Likewise, light seems to behave like waves, but when we observe it, it's as if we're loading its properties, causing it to change and act like particles. Physicist Richard Feynman famously said, "The double slit experiment is absolutely impossible to explain in any classical way, and has in it the heart of quantum mechanics. In reality, it contains the only mystery." The most widely accepted theory to explain this phenomenon comes from physicist Niels Bohr, who proposed that particles like photons don't have definite properties until they're observed. So in the case of light, photons exist in a wave-like form representing a range of possible positions until they are observed. When we measure or observe the particle, we force it to choose a definite state, behaving like particles. This is called the Copenhagen interpretation, named in honor of Bohr's home city. However, to this day, no one knows why observing a particle causes its behavior to change. Not everyone was a fan of his theory. Einstein disagreed that particles could be in multiple states at once until observed. He was uncomfortable with the inherent randomness of such an interpretation, and famously said, "God does not play dice with the universe." Einstein believed that the universe followed a consistent set of rules, like how his general relativity theory predicted the motion of planets around the sun. He spent his later years trying to develop a unified theory that explained everything in the universe, but he didn't succeed. Physicists recently conducted a variation on the double slit experiment. In April 2023, researchers at Imperial College London swapped out the screen with two slits for a transparent material used in smartphone screens called ITO. They first fired a laser beam at the material. When a second laser was directed at the material and pulsed super quickly in quadrillionths of a second, it caused the material to become temporarily reflective. The interaction of laser 2 with the material changed the frequency and therefore the color of the light from laser 1 that was reflected off the material. This experiment shows that by manipulating time rather than space, they were able to create interference patterns similar to the interference observed in the original double slit experiment. There are certain things in life we take for granted. If you don't get enough sleep, you'll feel tired and groggy. If you drive recklessly, you're more likely to get into an accident. But sometimes there are principles that govern our lives that we just can't explain. The perplexing result of the double slit experiment is up for interpretation, with some suggestions that this is evidence our world could be programmed. So far, not even the best scientific minds can explain the bizarre behavior of particles, at least, not yet. There are many puzzles that are perplexing. For example, can you tell what's wrong with the gears Leonardo da Vinci wanted to use in his military tank design from the 15th century? This is one of thousands of problems you'll find on Brilliant, a website and app where you can learn STEM interactively. My viewers especially love Brilliant's lessons in computer science, data science, and math. Da Vinci's tank design had a flaw in its gear mechanism, causing the front and back wheels to rotate in opposite directions, so the tank will never be able to move at all. This was possibly an oversight or an intentional mistake to protect his design from being built without his support. For more puzzling questions like this, you can check out Brilliant for free for 30 days by heading to the custom link in my description, brilliant.org/newsthink. And the first 200 people who sign up with my link will get 20% off their premium subscription, which gives you access to all the offerings. Thanks for watching. I'm Cindy Palm.